For 6 years, the Labor government worked not towards the light on the hill, Madam Speaker, but towards the great liability on the hill. That was their effort, 6 years towards that big liability. And one of the major components of that was the delusion that the national broadband network would be a wonderful investment. Indeed, when it was first announced by Prime Minister Rudd, he said it was going to be so fantastic that mums and dads would be lining up to invest in it. You could just imagine the government bringing in the crowd control barriers, training the AFP to link arms to hold back the hordes of anxious investors desperate to get their stake. The Labor Party's NBN, had it been continued with, would have had a peak funding requirement of $73 billion, which would have amounted to more than 10%. Man, I'd ask the honourable member to withdraw. Madam Speaker, I'm wounded. That's defended the House.
I withdraw.
I'm feeling a bit better now. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm very sensitive. Madam Speaker, had the Labor Party stayed in office, within the decade we would have had $667 billion of debt, and more than 10% of that would have been contributed by their misguided national broadband network project. The government is very much in the position of Mr. Wolfe in that great movie Pulp Fiction, cleaning up the mess. But the difference is that in that movie, John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson helped clean up the mess they made and didn't get in the way of it. Now, one of the things that we have been criticised for, as we endeavour to sort out this matter, is that we have taken down the Labor Party's maps, which Stephen Conroy, in a sort of Sim City type of parallel universe, had been covering with green blotches to suggest that the NBN was rolling out at a massive pace. We have been criticised for telling the truth about the progress of the NBN, and Labor members have said, you've taken these green blotches off the map. And Senator Conroy has been so upset. I mean, he's the Shadow Minister for Defence, but he seems to be only thing he's defending is himself, as far as I can see. And of course, the remarkable thing, Madam Speaker, in terms of reality denial in this area, is that we have the member for Blaxland and the member for Greenway there, surely the Laurel and Hardy of telecommunications. We are completing the project sooner, 3.5 years sooner, cheaper, $32 billion cheaper, and therefore more affordably. Now, Madam Speaker, the previous approach by the Labor Party is very, very well illustrated by a recent press release put out by the member for Blaxland and the member for Greenway. It's a very modest release, Madam Speaker. The titles of the two members take up more than half the page. They're in about 20-point type, no doubt out of deference to those with poor eyesight. But, Madam Speaker, what is remarkable here is the denial of any type of financial responsibility. They say here that under Labor's approach only $30 billion would be paid for by the government. Only $30 billion. So where would the $43 billion come from? Where would it come from? Junk bonds? Who knows? Who knows? And they suggest that it could be borrowed by the NBN Co with no government guarantee. You could borrow $43 billion on $2.6 billion of free cash flow. It wouldn't even be enough to pay the interest. Now, Madam Speaker, as I read this, I became angrier and angrier at the incredible profligacy of the Labor Party. But then I was filled with a warm glow. This press release made me feel young again. It reminded me of shoulder pads, Duran Duran, Bruce Springsteen. It went back to the 80s. This, Madam Speaker, is the financial gospel of Alan Bond and Laurie Connors. Oh, Madam Speaker, remember those halcyon days, the America's Cup, margaritas at Fremantle? It's all coming back when you could borrow tens and tens of billions of dollars. tens of billions of dollars, never have to pay it back. All fantasy money. Oh, Madam Speaker, this is a retro party indeed. This is a retro party indeed. They are going back into the past. But, Madam Speaker, sadly, I compared them to Laurel and Hardy a day or so ago. That was unfair because at least Stan Laurel fessed up. His famous line, "What another fine mess I got you into."